Chefs Without Restaurants, episode 128 with Matt Finarelli.
And then the pandemic hit, and the concept of gathering with random strangers night after night just suddenly became a no-go. And I found my business model 100% shut down. Restaurants could pivot to figure out, takeout and to-go stuff and keep everyone safe. They did those kinds of pivots. My business of going to people's homes had no pivot. There's no takeout version of a cooking class that I saw. And so I did what most people did. I thought, hey, this will just be like 2 months. I'll ride it out, and then I'll get back into it. And the months just kept on going. And I'm like not working and nothing's happening. And I could see it's just not getting any better. So I had to figure out something. To do.
This is the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast with your host, Chris Spear. Each week, I'll be speaking with food entrepreneurs and people in the culinary industry. If you're interested in learning more about our organization dedicated to helping people build and grow their food businesses, look us up on the web at chefswithoutrestaurants.com and .org, and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Chefs Without Restaurants. Now, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. I'm your host, Chris Spear. On the show, I have conversations with culinary entrepreneurs and people in the food and beverage industry who took a different route. They're caterers, research chefs, personal chefs, cookbook authors, food truckers, farmers, cottage bakers, and all sorts of culinary renegades. I myself fall into the personal chef category, as I started my own personal chef business, Perfect Little Bites, 11 years ago. And while I started working in kitchens in the early 90s, I've literally never worked in a restaurant. This week, I have personal chef and cooking instructor Matt Finarelli. Matt was a guest on our show way back in March 2020. In fact, he might have been the last in-person show that we recorded before the COVID shutdown. If you're interested in hearing that episode, it was number 24, and you can find the link in our show notes. So, due to the situation with COVID, Matt didn't feel comfortable going into people's homes to cook or do lessons. But, like most people, he needed some form of income, so Matt turned to online cooking classes. It wasn't something he had experience with, but he found a way to make it work. Now he wants to share that knowledge with you, the listener. Matt talks about how he got started and what he learned along the way. He'll tell you what gear he's using, how he sets up the online classes, and what his price structure looks like. While Matt plans on going back to in-home dinners and lessons, he says he'll definitely be continuing to do the online classes. So, he wanted to come on the show and provide tactical information to help you set up a similar business. If you'd like to learn how to make money with online cooking classes, this is the episode for you. And I'd just like to say that the biggest thing you could do to help support the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast is to share it. If you enjoy the show and get some value, tell people about it. Post on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Leave a review, comment, just let people know we're out here putting on this show. I really appreciate the support. Thank you. And now, I'm pleased to welcome our newest sponsor, Baking Steel. Looking to make better pizza? How about bagels, bread, or English muffins? Then you need a baking steel. Don't just take my word for it. Kenji Lopez-Alt of Serious Eats and the Food Lab said, "This is the answer I've been waiting for to produce consistently awesome pizza over and over." I've had my baking steel for a number of years, and I absolutely love it. Besides baking bread goods in the oven, it's the best way for me to make tortillas at home, both corn and flour, as well as an amazing smash burger. And if you want to hear the whole baking steel story, I have founder Andres Lagsden as a guest this season, so that episode should be dropping in a couple weeks. In the meantime, I'm going to drop a link in the show notes so you'll be able to pick up your own baking steel. Hey Matt, how's it going? So great to have you back on the show.
It's wonderful to be back on the show. Thanks for having me again. I'm thrilled to be back.
Yeah, your episode was one of the last ones we did in person, and it aired in March of 2020, if you can believe that. So it was episode 24.
God, it seems like forever ago. And I was actually thinking back to when we did it in person, and part of me was like, when was that? When did we actually do that? How close to the shutdown were we? And now you're telling me, I didn't realize it was that close. I knew it was close, but wow. And just and congratulations on the podcast through all this, that it's just grown and become so great. I love it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think the day you recorded the show was our longest recording ever because we did two that day, and we even
Right.
took a lunch break and did some drinking
Yep.
in there in the middle. Um,
I
Definitely
remember.
seems like a million years ago that we did that. But I'm so glad you could come back on the show because so much has changed. So for all of our listeners, we're not going to get a lot into your backstory. If anyone wants to hear about Matt, episode 24, I'll link it in the show notes, but he is a personal chef and a cooking instructor. And I really wanted to talk to him about how business has changed and what's changed since COVID because so much has changed. So that's probably a great starting off point. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do as far as being a personal chef and a cooking instructor? And that can be both pre-COVID and then we'll kind of transfer into what you're doing now.
The main thing that I did with culinary instruction pre-COVID was my business model was to work with clients to figure out what they wanted to make. I would then do all the shopping for all the ingredients. I would gather up all my equipment, drive to their home, and we would teach a cooking class in the comfort of their own home. And it was great. I loved that business, and it was just fantastic. And then the pandemic hit, and the concept of gathering with random strangers night after night just suddenly became a no-go. And I found my business model 100% shut down. Restaurants could pivot to figure out, takeout and to-go stuff and keep everyone safe. They did those kinds of pivots. My business of going to people's homes had no pivot. There's no takeout version of a cooking class that I saw. And so I did what most people did. I thought, hey, this will just be like 2 months. I'll ride it out, and then I'll get back into it. And the months just kept on going. And I'm like, not working and nothing's happening. And I could see it's just not getting any better. So I had to figure out something. I had to figure out something to do.
Now, did you ever think about doing drop-off kind of meal prep? Because you and I have very similar business models, and everyone kept saying to me, well, why don't you just go and do these meals, rent a commercial kitchen, make a bunch of food and drop it off at someone's house? That's not what I ever really wanted to do. I don't know how you feel. Did that ever go through your mind?
What actually was I did that for 6 years. That was a huge part of my business for a very long time. Was weekly meal prep. I had clients that would order off a menu that I created. I had a partner, so we rented kitchens. We did the same menu, so we could make the food in bulk, package it, and deliver it. I did that nonstop for 6 years, and that's give or take 300 weeks in a row. I did that, and I finally burned out on it. I stopped. What happened? The pandemic. I had clients come back to me, and they were like, "Hey, man, we're ready to hire you if you want to do this." And I was just like, I'm still too burned out from the 6 years that I'd done that. So yeah, it crossed my mind in the sense of maybe this is all I can do, but man, I didn't want to. I was just so, it's hard. That is a hard business to be in. And yes, the money's good and I enjoyed it, but I was too burned out to even entertain that as an option.
And did you ever consider masking up and going into people's houses? I mean, that's what I did. I've talked a lot about taking 11 weeks off and then going back in. And I have immunocompromised seniors, my in-laws who live with us, and kids. But, I needed to get back to work. And a lot of people have, but you haven't worked at all like that during the pandemic. Did you ever think about doing that? And what was that decision like?
My family, we were being very cautious. And so no, it wasn't until the vaccines came out. I was always watching, where's the vaccine status? How's that coming? And when the vaccines became available, my wife works in a high risk industry, and so do I, technically being a chef. So we got early on in the vaccines. I got myself vaccinated as quickly as I could. Once I was vaccinated, once I gave it the few weeks, then I started masking up and going in. But before I was vaccinated, it was just not. It was not an option for me. I wasn't, and I made sure all of the clients that I went to were also vaccinated. I made sure that they, I was like, is everybody present vaccinated? And even still, I masked up. And it was a summertime, and I made my first foray back to people's homes. I was like, I'll do outdoor events, because we had a very nice summer here in DC. So I just said, let's go outside. Let's keep some distance and have the air around us. Let's do it that way. And so I did a bunch of wine tasting and beer tasting type classes in the great outdoors in the summertime as my first forays back into it. I really tried to ease back into it as safely as I could. And I've yet to catch COVID, knock on wood. And, that's the way I want to keep it. I want to keep it just like that.
Yeah, same here. We have dodged that bullet as well. And as
this Omicron variant is out there. It's getting scary. I mean, I've really had to reconsider that. I've been doing some big parties. I've had some big parties in December, and guests aren't masked in their house. I mean, they're going to be eating, they're going to be partying, and even though I'm vaccinated and boosted and wearing masks, I'm still kind of like, I don't know, is it time to become a bit of a shut-in again?
What I told my clients was I'm coming back in person starting in the new year. Like that was going to just be my dividing line. January 1st, I'm back. And I sent out an email to that effect. And of course, everybody was like, yeah, you're back. I got, the people all say, yeah, come on. And so I started scheduling things. I had a class for this. We're recording this on a Thursday. I had or is this a Wednesday? Whatever. I had a Friday and Saturday this week that I just canceled because I was like, or postponed. I was like, sorry, it's too much right now. Let's push it down and we'll do that later. Or we can switch to make it a virtual class if you want to. But I'm not comfortable going into people's homes right now with Omicron surging the way it is right now.
So what I really want to get into is this whole thing about in-home cooking classes or virtual into people's homes. So that's something you started. I want to talk about how you came about that. Had you ever done anything like that before the pandemic? Had you done any virtual classes?
Absolutely not. I dare say that before the pandemic, I'd barely ever done a video chat. I'd maybe done like a Facebook message chat kind of thing once or twice. I really knew nothing about this. Once the pandemic hit, I mean, Zoom became everybody's new best friend, and it was this wild world. That's where, after the months were on for a while, I was like, okay, I need to do something else. I need to do something here, and just to kill the boredom. I'd started doing Zoom, and Google Meet was another very popular one. Doing chats with families and friends to keep in touch and so forth. I said, you know what? Why not try a cooking class for this? And what the very first thing that I did, I remember I had my wife. We had a camera on like a little gimbal thing that she could hold. And I did a fondue thing on Facebook Live. I went live on my Facebook channel, and I told everyone it was going to happen at the specific time. In 15 minutes, I made cheese fondue just live, just see how it goes. And the response was great. It was a ton of fun. We had a really great time. And I was like, okay, how can I start doing this? And what I did was I started doing classes for free for my clients. I told them, look, this is the time. Here's the link. It's free because I knew it wasn't going to be very good because I didn't know what I was doing. And I wanted to get a chance to have lots of people in there, get something free and fun. I feel like, I'm providing. And I'm going to make a soup. And I used that to figure out, like, what do I need to know? How do I do this right to make it really great? And then with time, I got good at it. And then I started charging people, and it took off. It took off in ways that I never expected it to. I sent out an email around Thanksgiving of 2020 saying, virtual classes makes a great gift, all of that. I was booked nonstop for the next 6 months. I basically didn't stop between December and May. I was doing 4 or 5 a week for 6 months straight because everyone wanted this, and it really took off. And I learned a ton. And like I said, I would love to give some tips and tricks if you're a listener says I want to try to create their own in-home virtual cooking class. I have learned so much about how to make this work, and that's why I think I'm here.
So first and foremost, do you need to have a second person to do this to make it go right? Do you need to have a camera person?
Right. Okay. Great question. Because I suddenly realized my wife cannot sit there and hold the camera for every single class. She has a job too that she does remotely, and it's just not fair to make her sit there and hold a camera for 2-3 hours. It's impossible. So no, you have to be able to do this without a camera person because no one's going to stand there for 3 hours unless they're a professional camera person by trade. You need to, for step one, you need to invest in a tripod. Okay. I use my phone. That's what I'm on right now. And I have these headphones I've got actually after almost a year of doing this. I was like, I want the sound to be a little better. So now I wear these headphones and this microphone setup when I'm doing the classes because I can hear people's questions better. And also there's less kitchen echo when I do this. But the most important thing, I have this $20 tripod that's nice and adjustable and clicks and locks and so forth. And you need that kind of setup so your hands are free to do the cooking part, but the shots are really good. And to that end, you need 3 shots. You only need 3 shots. That's why you don't need a camera person. You need your camera to look at 3 things. You need a camera shot that I have right now, which is you and I you're looking at my face. so I can introduce the class, I can introduce myself, and so forth. The second shot you need, I'll show you, and I know how to do click, is this shot. You need the cutting board. Okay. So I know exactly how to manipulate my tripod instantly to go take a look at the tripod. And here's where we'll do prep, and I can do knife skills, and I can show people what I'm cutting and how we do that. So I have those setups, and it's great that my camera doesn't even have to move. The tripod doesn't have to move. The third shot you need the stove. Okay. So that's where the other action happens. So I know where the tripod has to land to see the stove just right. And that's where the pots and pans will be all laid out and ready to go. So I have 3 positions of my camera and 2 places where I put the tripod. And those are the 3 shots that you need. That's literally it. Okay. And if you keep your spaces in your kitchen clear so your tripod can land in those 2 spots at any moment to show people what they need, and don't move the camera on too much, they'll get seasick, but then you're set. You have all the shots you need to do an entire cooking class. So 1 tripod, 3 shots. When you figure those out in your kitchen, you're good. That's 90% of the battle right there.
And you're just shooting on your phone, which is something almost everyone has.
That's right. My smartphone does it, and I can keep it plugged in when it's in this position near the wall, so I don't lose charge. But yeah, if you keep your phone fully charged before the class, it'll usually last the whole class. You're going to be fine. But yeah, don't let your phone run out. Ask me how I know. Don't let your phone run out of juice partway through a class. That's embarrassing.
And what app are you using or platform to do these through?
Okay, so that's another really interesting point that I want to make sure I put out there. I learned this the hard way. When I did the classes I was telling you about, like Google Meet, where I said, I'm just going to be here at this time and everyone come. What happened was, and I learned this right away, was everybody at the last second, I'm getting my class again a lot. People start, I can't get in. I'm having this problem. I'm doing that. So now I'm tech support as well. So I'm tech support and I'm the chef and everything. You can't do that. You're the chef. So believe it or not, what I tell all the clients is, you're going to set up the meeting. Tell me what platform you want. And I've done them all now. I've done Microsoft Teams. I've done Google Meet. I've done Zoom. I've done WhatsApp. I've done Facebook Messenger. I've done another one I'm thinking of. I can't remember, Win something. Anyway, I've done a ton of these platforms. The client sets it up. Their tech support. If their family members or friends are having trouble logging in, they have to handle that, because at the last second, I have to make sure that my class is going okay. And I came at it with that policy, and I wanted to see if people gave me any pushback, like, oh, yeah, it's your class. No one has ever given me pushback on that. It's always been no problem. And I tell them, like, here's some free ones. Google Meet is free to use, but almost everyone uses Zoom. I mean, it's for every 10 classes I do, 9 of them are Zoom, and 1 of them is something else.
That's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that. And that, I think, is probably going to be one of the best tips. I mean, I'm sure you're going to give us some good tips, but I hadn't thought about that at all. The whole idea of them setting it up so then you don't have to deal with that tech support. I can see how that is. I've done some Zoom meetings where we had, 5 or 6 people on the call, and the same thing. I'm getting DMs through Instagram about I can't get into the room and such and such. But you hadn't noticed any difference in different platforms. Like, there were no big things, like you'd been doing all Zoom and then you go to Google Meet and it's like, this doesn't quite work the same, or nothing you couldn't get over?
No, nothing I couldn't get over. There are some platforms that are some of these are better than others, and Zoom's the best. I think that's personal preference. It just works. And it's sort of the industry standard, but everyone says this is what we use in our office. We have this office account, because oftentimes it's office parties. That's a big part of my business. Office Christmas parties and so forth, because they can't get together. And it's been amazing that I just say, hey, and I phrase it like, just send me the link. Tell me what time you want to start, and send me the link to the meeting, and I'll be there. And I've always sort of phrased the business. At the time I called it Chef Matt Cooks In. That is, you guys are having a meeting, and it's like I suddenly appear, teach a class, and then I leave, and you guys and families can keep talking and so forth. It's just like, there's a 2-hour window of this otherwise chat where, haha, I'm here, and we're gonna have that fun. I have some clients, they hire me, and they always meet half an hour before I come in, and they're usually drinking wine before that. So when I come in, it's just this big, boisterous, loud, party that I'm dropping in on. And they love me, I love them, so we have a great time. And then I leave, and then I get an email the next day. Yeah, we were on 3 more hours afterwards, eating and having fun. I'm like, that's awesome. That is exactly what I want this to be. Tell me when to show up. Send me the link. I'll be there. that has always been the model. And like I said, no pushback. People are totally fine with that. And that leaves me to be chef support, and then they can be tech support. And I think that puts the right strengths in the right places.
So to get this rolling with the client, how are you going about menu selection? I mean, do you find out kind of what they want to do, come up with a menu, and then do they do all the shopping for their stuff and you've got your stuff, and that's how it goes?
With this, the model's completely different because I can't go to your house. I've had clients in other countries. I've had clients around the country. I've had, even if they were all here in the DC area, as oftentimes they are, I can't buy all the food and then drive to everyone's home, drop off all the food. And so I would never make it. That would be untenable, because every night I'm driving all over the place. So what we do is we figure out what they want to make. I try to limit the classes to under 2 hours because, to be honest with you, Zoom calls and stuff, people don't want to go on forever usually.
So what do you wish you knew when you started? The first couple ones where you started charging people, right? Like, what were some of the things that maybe you didn't do right that you tweaked as time went on?
Without question, the thing that you gotta have in this I learned is you've got to be prepared. Okay, you have to think through each recipe you're doing, think through every ingredient you're going to need, think through every implement that you need. Every pot, every pan, every spoon, every whisk, every measuring implement that you think you might need, and just have them ready. Know where they are. It doesn't look good in your class if you have to stop and walk off over here, especially before you have a microphone, and you start rummaging through the junk drawer. And when I first started, I'm like, I'm in my home kitchen. I got all my stuff here. And I had one class where I was like, oh my God, the piece of equipment I need is in my garage, where my extra storage is. And I didn't bring it out. What am I supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to just run off camera and go get it? I improvised as a good chef would, but the concept is it didn't look right for the class. So without question, the thing that I learned after the first 5 or 10 classes was get everything out that you need and make your kitchen look good with it all and be ready. And the fact that I could do my whole class and I never am leaving or wandering off, I'm just here and cooking. It looks so good. It looks so professional, and it looks like I know what I'm doing. And you want to convey that sense of professionalism because they're paying you to be a professional chef. And yeah, if you go off rummaging, wait, I'll be right back. I need that. Oh, no, it just doesn't look right.
So when you're doing this, what's going on off camera?
Yeah, so there's the behind the scenes mode. I talk about the 3 shots that you have to have, and you got to look good. Your kitchen needs to be clean and all of that on the shots that are on camera. But then there's stuff going on off camera as well. One thing I learned right off the bat is there's a little pile of 3 things that I like to have off camera at all times. Okay, the uses for them are obvious, but it's one of those things. You need gloves. Okay, no one needs to see your box of gloves, but have them handy. Tasting spoons. Don't go rummaging around to look for spoons to taste your food. And Band-Aids. Okay. Look, we're all chefs. We work with knives. If you cut yourself, that's not necessarily unprofessional. Okay. It's just part of life and it happens to all of us. But what's unprofessional is if you cut yourself and then you have to leave and go rummaging through your bathroom to find a Band-Aid. If you do, and actually I've never have to date, knock on wood, if you cut yourself and you make a joke out of it, you quickly wash off Band-Aid, glove, and it's all quick like that and you're back into it, you never left, you look good. People actually say, wow, he's got it together. He or she, they know what they're doing as a chef as compared to just, oh my God, I cut my, then they'll just, they'll think you're one of the 3 Stooges. And the other thing that's mainly off camera is lighting, studio lights. I invested in some studio lights. I'll turn my camera so you can see them. But having studio lights to shoot across the room instead of your overhead lights, which you can see here, they're off. The lights that are in the ceiling of your kitchen shining down on you makes for a really bad shot. And your shadow will cast over it on your cutting board. It doesn't look good. Getting big, beautiful light from the sides like this and it fills the room is a much better look. It's expensive to go buy some studio lights, and you might not want to do that at first, but maybe a floor lamp, to shoot up, radiate up and around instead of that direct light from there. So that's my main off cameras. I have a few little knickknacks that, no one should be looking at. And then lights. I have good lights that make the whole thing look good. Oh, and under counter lights, very important. Makes for a good look. I mean, How's it look? I mean, does it look all right to
No,
you?
you look great. And those lights aren't that expensive. I invested in some a few years ago because I wanted to have some photo shoot work, and I totally respect photographers and what it costs. But when I started pricing it out, I was like, I'm a decent amateur photographer. I'm like, all I really need is some good lighting and some other stuff. And I just bought some lights on Amazon just so I could start doing more food photography. And even like my headshot that I use now, we shot in my kitchen at my house. I cleaned it up, brought in the lights. My daughter helped me with that. You know, I've got a tripod, I've got a gimbal and all that stuff. And you know, if you're going to be doing any kind of food media, I think it's worth, you know, investing a couple $100 in getting some gear.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I even bought a little light box over the course of the pandemic too, just so I could shove it in there and, you know, get some cool food shots and stuff. Hey, we got to do something to pass the time, right? So make some food, take some shots, become amateur photographers.
I've even used some LED like work lights, like you can buy for like $20 on Amazon that are pretty bright without getting into the whole light box. Like if you just need some more light, you know, like the work lamps and stuff, and just plug it in and hang it on a hook somewhere in your kitchen. And that does a decent job. If you don't want to get into the couple $100 range, spending like $20 on like one of those LED work lamps is, you know,
Absolutely.
gives you just a little more oomph.
Agreed. Oh yeah, that's and some circle lights. You know, those ring lights. I have a few of those. I use those for my videos now. I just started a video cocktail series called Two Hands One Drink as well on YouTube. So hey, go check out YouTube. Two Hands One Drink. There's my plug for that. And I have some ring lights that I put in for that to you know, from the sides. I mean, I've got so much lighting behind me for that show. It's kind of weird. I'm always worried I'm going to start sweating from just the sheer volume of light that I'm putting on that table, where I'm just doing this tiny little cocktail thing with my hands, and there's just like all these lights. But yeah, I invested in a lot of lights.
Well, I want to come back to the cocktail thing, but first, while we're talking about it, do you have a mise en place list? Like, do you have a written list that you do before every event where you're kind of listing out everything you need? You know, things like everything from the Band-Aids and the spoons to all the ingredients for the event.
So yeah, and it's mostly in my head, but the way that I like to prep it personally is I have my recipes. I go ingredient by ingredient down the recipes and have them all prepped and laid out. Then I go through the instructions. I go equipment piece by equipment piece by equipment piece. Make sure I know where all of those are. So the first step is make sure the recipes are laid out. Then, I just have this mental checklist, which is, you know, clean up, clear my 2 spaces for my tripod, the little bits, the lights, the little bits, and so forth. You know, making sure all the lighting looks good, and then clean yourself up. You know, you got to look professional. So I put on, I'm dressed the exact same way as if I would go into someone's house. I've got the chef's pants, the shoes, I've got the jacket. You know, look good for the camera, and then go check yourself. You know, turn on the camera, and you know, make sure that the your phone is charged and looking good, and then do a video shot of yourself and make sure you look good for the shots, and you know, test all that stuff out. So yeah, it's just a mental checklist and prep, but before any class, I mean, it's at least an hour of work before the class even starts on my end, just to make sure my kitchen looks organized, clean, and professional for when this starts, because, you know, they're still paying me, and I got to give them the best cooking class I can give them like this. So yeah, it's a mental list, but yeah, it's definitely okay, this, I got that, I got that, I got that. Okay.
I have a written pulls list for my events, like when I go into people's homes. So I have this very detailed with like, probably 40 things on it that I have to pull as far as China equipment and everything. And then I have every ingredient listed out. If I don't have a list, I'm going to miss something. Guaranteed.
When I'm going off into there, I do the 5-point checklist. Once I've loaded the car, I do the 5-point checklist: tools, equipment, recipes, cold food, warm food, okay, or room temperature food. And I just do those 5 things, because I mean, I've piled it up and I'm relatively certain I've got it all, each of those things. But if I leave my toolbox at home, you know, that's tools. I got to be there. So I always do it I always do that 5-point checklist as the last thing before I leave. It has saved me some very, very bad situations.
Have you ever had any kind of interference, kids, animals, spouse, natural disasters, anything going on in the background?
You know, it's funny. My wife sometimes has to get some food out of the fridge. You can see the fridge behind me. She has to get food, but she doesn't. She just comes in and does it naturally. And it's, if you don't make a big deal of it, hey, this is life. You know, it's no one has ever said, oh, you know, what's that? You know, it's just, she just comes in and grabs whatever she needs. My daughter is 8, and sometimes she's kind of wants to get on, but my wife's, you know, like, no, this is not a group you can get on camera. But if it's family, she just wants to if it's a family or friends, something like that, she wants to jump up on the screen and be that. But she's never done a crazy interaction. I do own 2 cats, but they're not kitchen cats too much, thank God. One of them likes to meow, and every once in a while he'll be meowing for dinner off screen, and they'll be like, "Is your cat okay?" Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. He's just, dinner's 1 minute late, and he's letting me know. So then my wife just handles that usually when she hears that. So it's funny. But yeah, but I do try to handle feeding the cats and things like that before class if I can remember. Just so they're quiet, that kind of thing. But I'm lucky. I've never had a cat like jump up on the counter in the middle of a class or anything like that. I'd have to find a way to brush it off though if it happened.
Yeah, my cat is a kitchen cat. He loves. I mean, I hate having cats on the counter and in that area, but sometimes it happens. But my kids are loud. Like I've talked to people about how hard it was being a content creator at home during the pandemic because we have an open floor plan. So my kitchen is essentially open into the living room, and I have twins, so it's not like one child. So like my kids are always not only watching TV, but yelling and banging on things. I just said, like, I don't know that there's any way I could do anything like this from home just because of the nature of having 6 people in my house. Like, it's loud all the time. Recording a podcast for an hour is tough. Like, finding 1 hour where I can get this done, where it's not like a complete shit show going on, has been really tough. So I don't know that I could do this.
We sort of set up rules, and it's like this class goes for this long. So during that time, I need quiet for that period of time. And I mean, I understand like kids of a certain age, you can't even explain that to. And you got to find, if you have a bubble family, I mean, in the early days, we have a bubble family, we would send her off to the bubble family, for the early recordings, just get her out of the house for 2 hours. And that's that works. Now she's pretty good. She knows that like, if I've set up the lights and I've got the mic on and I'm here, this is a quiet time, and she can read or play Roblox or whatever for a little bit of time. And then once I whenever it ends, I take it off. I yell to the whole house. I go, clear, like the mic's off, camera's off, clear. And there's usually both of them are like, ah, and my wife and my daughter, we can make noise again, yeah.
I'm sure if you had unlimited Roblox time, my kids would be fine too. If I was like, you can play Roblox as long as I'm on this thing, they would want my cooking to go on for hours.
I do that. I mean, look, man, I need a absolute not kids running around. So yeah, when the class is on, absolutely, you can all you want, all the screen time you want. Just make it so I can't hear it, and yeah, it's fine. You got to do that for the class because you're right. I mean, a kid's running through the kitchen screaming. That's just does not portray the professional chef thing people want to pay for.
How many courses are you doing for this?
I like an ideal class is usually one main sort of dish. And by far, the most popular dish during the pandemic was paella. Oh my God, I've made so much paella over the course of this. I've made so much paella, I like to say my neighbors are sick of paella at this point with all the paella I've made and given to them. Just like, get all this paella out of my house, please. It's so much. To answer your question, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a tangent there. It's usually one main dish. We usually do one little side dish, whether it's a dessert or a side or an app, something like that. And then oftentimes a cocktail too, just to start it off, a little fun, shake a little something to get started, and a little history of the cocktail. That usually takes 5-10 minutes, nothing. And then we cook the two things. That usually takes about 1.5, 2 hours. And it's a great time. And then, they have drinks, they have food, they've learned stuff that I stay to answer any and all questions they have. And I sign off when we're done. And I'm home with food. It's great. I don't have to pack up anything.
Well, you mentioned cocktails. I know you're kind of a cocktail guy. So Now you're also doing cocktail videos. Talk about your cocktail videos a little bit.
Sure. This actually was an offshoot of the pandemic as well. I had some friends who we used an app called Marco Polo, which is like you send a short little video clip as like one would a text message. So the group can then watch it whenever they want to watch those videos. Well, I'm bored at home like everyone else, and I had been researching cocktails and teaching myself mixology. And now I really had to teach myself because I couldn't go much of anywhere because it was early on before I started I've taken a bunch of online mixology classes since. It's been fantastic. And so with Marco Polo, I decided to share some cocktails with my friends, like let's do something. So what I did is I put the phone sort of here near my chest on the counter, and I reached around the phone. So the people were watching me make the drink, in front of me, shooting out from my, like chest level. and so forth. And I just did shot after shot. And my friends were like, these are a lot of fun. The ones that liked cocktails, like, these videos are fun. You present well. It's sort of my job. You have a good voice. I know I'm a voiceover artist. I know. They were like, these are great videos. You should think about doing a show like this. And so the show Two Hands, One Drink was born because you see my two hands and I'm making a drink with just my hands. I like to say it's the only cocktail series on YouTube that has no waxed mustaches, no butcher's aprons, and no pretentiousness. It's the way I like to do it. It's I just tell jokes. I put up funny clips, and I'm just making a drink to show everyone and teach a little bit of the history and whatever comes to mind. And I try to do it all in one unedited shot. So if there's a mistake as I go, a little dribble or something, hey, it's in there. I call it out. I'm like, that's. I'll call myself out for doing something stupid, but I want to just make it be this clean, unedited, raw, fun experience for making drinks. And I've got 9 episodes now, and I'm having a great time with it. It's a lot of fun. I'm just doing it just to share some fun.
What's your favorite drink?
My favorite is a Negroni. Okay, that's my favorite cocktail. But it's so funny that, when you ask me that, the reason I pause is there's also always this moment of what's my favorite drink right now? Because it's so amazing, all these things that I've learned about cocktails. And I have these moments where I'm all about like a gin blossom, or I'm all about a mint julep, or I'm all about an old fashioned. And I just go through these waves of I just put up my video for the Last Word. I'm into Last Words right now. I'm loving them.
I drank chartreuse last night, just straight chartreuse, because that's how I roll it. It's one of my favorite cocktails as well. So Negroni and Last Word are probably my 2 favorite cocktails.
No kidding. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, but Negroni, I keep coming back. I can never stay away from a good Negroni.
One of my favorites during winter, and people love this or hate this, is I do Negroni eggnog, which people are kind of horrified of. And I did a video on
no kidding.
Instagram that I posted. Yeah, you just make a Negroni and then mix in eggnog. Like, you can just buy store-bought eggnog, and instead of adding in, whiskey or brandy or rum, just like pour your Negroni in there and drink it.
I've got to try that. I'm a huge eggnog. I love eggnog. I do. It sounds horrible, but I've got to try it.
I make eggnog in the summertime, and people are like, that's so gross. I'm like, how is it different than like drinking a milkshake? Like, people drink it. Right. Like, isn't eggnog essentially like melted ice cream base? Like, if you made an ice cream base, it would have milk and cream and eggs and sugar in it. Like, that's pretty much what eggnog is. So like, why wouldn't you drink eggnog on a hot summer day? And people think I'm crazy.
My innovation this year, the cocktail I worked on last year, I invented the gingerbread martini, a ginger snap martini, excuse me. If you go online and look up ginger snap martini, all the food blogs have a recipe. They're all the same. They're all just copying the recipe like food blogs do and sharing the exact same recipe around. And it's horrible. It's a terrible drink because the main thing they do is they crumble up ginger snap cookies and put them on the rim of the glass. And then you get this big, bready, nasty mess every time you take a sip of the drink. It's horrible. So I invented my own ginger snap martini that uses 4 different types of ginger in the mix. And it's a great drink. I'm so proud of that one. I really love that one. This year, my innovation for the holidays was shaken eggnog, because I love making a batch of eggnog, but I can't tell you how many times I show up at a party and I'm the only one there who likes eggnog, and I've made it for 12 people. And, I either throw out a lot of eggnog, or I do not remember the rest of the evening as a result of doing what I had to do as the only eggnog drinker. So I wanted to make a one-off eggnog, like a nog flip kind of thing in the shaker that came out perfectly. My main innovation was putting a half stick of cinnamon and a half a nutmeg nut in the shaker with it to bang those around, put in the flavor, really mix things up. And it's the infusion of flavor is out of this world. And I have a really awesome homemade shaken eggnog now that I can make one at a time. And so if you're an eggnog guy, I will send you that recipe because I'm very proud of that one.
Definitely. And I do that too. I have recipes. I actually had one in Imbibe magazine that uses Fernet Branca in there. I'm also kind of annoyed, and while I'm on the podcast, I'm going to mention this. Fernet actually took that recipe without saying anything to me and uses it as their recipe, and even went so far as to make a video and post it, and I didn't get credited. So while we're talking about this, because it's just something that just came up like a week ago, and this is something I'm going to talk about on the podcast more, is like companies taking intellectual property. I mean, this goes back to, I guess, you can't copyright or trademark recipes or whatever, but like, why wouldn't you just credit the creator, right?
Right.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I do some one-off eggnogs too, where you make just one for one person, because I found not everyone likes it. But that's one of my favorite ones that I do. It has both bourbon and Fernet in there, and I guess it's so good that Fernet felt the need to take it and use it in their social media marketing campaigns. So getting back to the cooking lessons, what have we not talked about that you think people should know? Like, what are some really great tips if they want to, next week start doing this?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing, if you're wanting to get into this space, you want to do these classes from home, and it can definitely be a great side hustle and a great source of supplemental income for sure. Through the year if you're doing it a lot. First things first, get out some free classes. Give away some free classes. You have clients. You have a Rolodex, right? Send out an email and do what I did. Just say, I will be cooking this. Here's the recipe. Pick something that you could cook, like a soup or something like that. I'll be cooking this at this time. Here's the link. Come on, and it's free. And what you'll do is you'll do only an okay job of it, and that's fine. Work out the kinks. They're not going to complain. They just learned a free recipe. It was totally free. Okay, and you'll see how teaching how to get people to mute their microphones politely, because you can't have everybody banging around and making all that noise. Finding the ways to find your patter and so forth. But you only get this with practice, practice, practice. So give away some free classes, really. And it's not going to hurt you to make a batch of soup here and there a few times. Work out all your kinks, see how your layout works, get your shots laid out. So that's, without question, that's the number one way to get this going. Just start doing it, and feel free to make mistakes because it's a free class. And then once you get good at it, go to that same Rolodex and say, hey, let's make this happen. Get your friends together and let's start doing it. And you'll be amazed how even that great ambassadorship, goodwill thing that you've done of free classes, combined with the fact that people want to do this. I am floored how many people want to do this. There's room in this space for lots of us to do this. So just start saying, hey, does anyone want to do this? And you'll be amazed at the feedback. You'll be amazed at how many people come to you.
How long did it take you to work out your pricing structure? Like, did you have that pretty set from the beginning, or did you kind of have to figure out what to charge to make it worth your time and to cover your ingredients?
Like when I started this business, I set a price that I thought was, man, I'm pushing it. I started out, when I started the in-home, I was like $50 a person. There's no way anyone will pay that. Oh my God. Yeah, no, that took off. And I definitely have increased my prices from that for sure. When I started this, I came up with the idea, like, do I want to charge per screen, per device, or just charge a flat, catch-all fee? And I went with the easiest option, which was a flat catch-all fee. And I said, $200 a class. That'll more than cover my ingredients, unless it's a foie gras, champagne, something like that demo. $200 will cover it, and I'll make a little bit on the side of that. And at $200, the number of things I was booking, within a few months, I increased to 300 because it was obvious that I was priced too low. And 300 is, I could probably raise my prices from that, but I'm happy with 300. Take out food costs and so forth. The profit's just fine for an evening at home, doing what I love. I'm happy with that. But yeah, there's lots of ways to structure the pricing for sure. Some of them are more work, but if you're going to charge per screen, a flat rate per screen, you have that ability to scale up and make a lot of money over the course of the night based on how big the event is. But if you just want to keep it simple, find a flat rate and find what people are willing to pay, and that'll work too.
Did you take any classes like this prior to doing it to kind of see how they worked, or did you just went on your own?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Like, did you come out as
Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought you meant, did I take any classes on how to teach these? And no, I didn't take any classes on how to teach these classes. But did I take any virtual classes? I took some Smithsonian lecture type classes to see, and just because it was topics I was interested in, but it wasn't on food even. It was just to see that interplay of how does a group come in and how does an audience member interact with a teacher, and seeing how a teacher interacts with a group. And it gave me a sense of there's one person who's the focus, and then everyone else is sort of out there in the field, and what that should feel like from both sides. So I did that to get a sense of it. But there are so many very good culinary instructors doing this now. Yeah, take a class or two, see what you like, see what you don't like, and implement the parts from the classes that you think work into yours. And whatever doesn't work, make a note of that too. Like make notes like, oh, you know what? She moved way too fast, or he was really rude when people were asking questions in the middle of his chopping. I don't think I want to be doing that. Make notes of that. Make notes of what you like and don't like, and then make your show into, all the best things and leaving out all the bad things that you saw.
Now, I'm sure you miss cooking with people in person because that's not quite the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. I will when this is all done. There's no question I'm going back to the in-person stuff. But I'm never going to stop doing this. This will always be a part of my business because I've been able to do things with this that I would never have been able to do. My record is I had one person in Austria, one in Sweden, one in DC, and one in Denver, all on the same class. And are you kidding me? I could never have done that before. That was so cool to see what their kitchens look like in other countries. And everyone was talking. They're all family. It was so nice to see a family dynamic like that they never could have done this if we hadn't created a virtual cooking class. So this will always be an option. If you're coming to me for a class, we can do something in person if you're in the greater DC area. I drive a ways. Or if you want to do something virtual, absolutely, let's do that. And it's a good cost saving option too. Some people are like, yeah, I got 20 people. I can't afford 20 people's worth of charge. Now I can say, hey, well, why don't we just do it virtually? Because it's a flat fee. And they're like, oh, hey, that's a great option. I'm like, sure, absolutely, let's do it that way. So in essence, I've also created an economical option for those who don't want, or can't spend that much for a big cooking party to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I charge at the very minimum $100 a person to go out and do these things. And then, if it's a smaller group, I have minimums of like 4 people. So if it's 2 people, I'm going to charge you $200 a person. It's going to be $400 for a cooking class for 2 people in their home. So they'd still get off paying much less if it was just the 2 of them. And I guess if you had this, like, have as many people as you want, then you can have 10 people on there and do it. And
exactly. I charge just like you. I charge $110 per person with a 4-person minimum charge just to show up. So any event where I'm in person, I have like a $440 appearance fee, as it were, and it covers up to 4 people. If you want to have 30 people, I mean, yes, I'll bring down the rate from 110, but imagine 30 people times, even I'm charging $50, I'm just making a small number. Or those 30 people could get online and you pay $300 flat. So it is a good economical option for, if people don't want to spend a fortune.
Well, very cool. I think so many people are used to doing this virtual thing now that I think it's still going to remain being such a part of our lives. I know it was a hump to begin with, but like now my mother-in-law like goes to her church Bible study, via the internet. Like I just think now we've been doing it for a year and a half, and it's something people are going to continue to do. So I don't think people have missed the boat on this, even as the pandemic starts to hopefully peter out. I think we're going to continue to see more of this virtual stuff.
For sure, this is going to be part of this industry forever. There's always going to be the virtual learning and so forth from now on. And just the fact that it lets you have a class with someone you never would have been able to have a class with otherwise.
Well, do you have any last words or anything before we get out of here today?
Well, sure. I mean, if anyone is interested in setting up a class, please check me out at Finarelli.com. It's spelled just like my last name. So it's FINARELLI.com. And we could set up a virtual class. Or if you are a chef out there who wants to start setting up virtual classes, drop me an email. I'm happy to help you and walk you through it, to give you some tips and start putting together your own virtual classes like this, because it has worked. It has saved my pocketbook and my sanity over the course of this pandemic. And now I just love it. I mean, I'm just so excited that I get to do this. I get to keep doing what I do and stay safe at the same time.
Well, thanks for your time. I'm sure so many people will take you up on this. I'll put all your info in the show notes. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if chefs reached out to you, because I think this is a really great way to bring in some extra income, if nothing else.
Even if it just becomes a side hustle for you, right? Why not? It's a lot. It's been very rewarding for me. And like I said, it was something I did out of necessity, and now it is something that will always be a part of my business. So it's been really great.
Yeah, I think this is something that maybe I will get into. I've been a little resistant, but you make it sound like it's easier than maybe I had it made out to be in my head.
When I first started doing it, the concept of my wife with a gimbal camera, I'm like, this is impossible. this is impossible. We can't do it. But like I said, I've gone through a lot of this, and I'm happy to help walk you through it so you can make it happen.
Fantastic. Well, to all of our listeners, thanks again for tuning in. This has been Chris with the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast. And Matt, hope to catch up with you again in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Go to chefswithoutrestaurants.org to find our Facebook group, mailing list, and chef database. The community's free to join. You'll get gig opportunities, advice on building and growing your business, and you'll never miss an episode of our podcast. Have a great week.